my great pleasure to welcome you to the Get Up Candidates Forum that we are holding here in this lovely venue. And I'd like to start by saying thank you to a couple of people who have helped make this event possible. In the first instance, we have the Mayor of Bassendean, Mr. John Gangel, and as well as him, the Mayor of Swan, Mr. Charlie Zanino, who've assisted us in making tonight's forum possible. We'd also, at this stage, I'd like to thank Rowan for her playing on the harp, which you would have heard when you were coming in. I hope you noticed. Set up a nice atmosphere for the evening. My name is Mark Ellison. I'll be your host for this evening. It's my pleasure to actually start tonight with the Welcome to Country. So, the candidates gathered here tonight have come to talk about what's best to look after this land and to look after the people who live here. But this is a conversation that's been going on for about 400 times longer than we've been sending people to Canberra. We acknowledge this longer conversation and the traditional owners of this land who engaged in it. One of the ways we make this acknowledgement is by starting events like this with a welcome to country. And tonight we're privileged to have Robert Isaacs offer this welcome to us. Robert Isaacs is a member of the Stolen generation. He began his career as a health worker, helping doctors and nurses work with Aboriginal communities. He became the first Aboriginal elected to local government in Gosnells, here in the Hasluck electorate. He's received numerous awards for his work in the community, including the Medal of the Order of Australia. Just last month, he received an honorary doctorate from Moullinbrough College in the UK, and he's just returned from a trip to receive that doctorate. So it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Robert Isaacs to the stage to deliver the Welcome to Country.
Thanks very much, Mark. Good evening, everyone. To my good friend Michelle Roberts. Good to see you, Michelle. Had a long association over many years in Aboriginal housing and education and so forth. First of all, thank you for the opportunity for inviting me here tonight to share with you my story. When we do Noongar Welcome, you generally do it with our dancers. I can't dance now because I've had a major knee reconstruction in February because of a football injury I received many years ago. But generally we would do the dancing or the smoking or we do the didgeridoo. Our elders teach us to tell stories also to what this land and country is all about. And that's where my philosophy is telling the story about this area of the metropolitan area and also the southwest where I come from. I begin by acknowledging that we are on Noongar land and I pay tribute to our traditional owners, elders, past and present, and to you all. My own place in Noongar country centres around Bunbury, Busselton, Margaret River in Augusta in the southwest. Of the 14 known tribes in the southwest, I belong to the Wadju people, the Wandati people and the Bibbulmun Noongar people of the southwest. Wajja Noongar Butcha, Kaya Wanja Noongar Butcha. Hello and welcome to Wajja Noongar country. Ninja Wanja Noongar Butcha, Noongar Nini. This is Wajja Noongar country you are sitting in. Noongar is a general name for Aboriginal people in the southwest of Western Australia, and the people who live in this area are Wadju people. When I do the storytelling, I'd like to do the storytelling of the famous Yagan, our warrior, who roamed this country, this land, quite amount of times when he was around at the age of 30. He became the warrior of the Noongar people that goes back to generations and generations. The story of Yagan, he was born in 1795, the son of respected Aboriginal elder of Mitchuguri, of the Noongar people who lived in the southwest region of Western Australia. In 1829, when Captain Stirling established the Swan River colony, Yagan was probably in his 30s with a wife and 2 children. In the early days of the settlement, Yagan was friendly with a number of the settlers. However, in 1830, misunderstanding and tension across the Aboriginal people and the new pioneers. An incident concerning the shooting of the death of a young Aboriginal boy who had entered the homestead near Melville caused a serious rift between the settlers and the local Aboriginal community, and under Aboriginal law the boy's death had to be revenged. Yagan's family and friends entered the homestead and speared a servant who had been working in the house. Further tragic retaliation events occurred. Finally, Yagan and two friends were caught and sentenced to indefinite period at the time at Carnick Island, a small limestone outcrop just south of Fremantle, and Yagan escaped from prison and spent many months avoiding recapture. July 1833, the two teenage brothers named William and James Keith discovered Yagan and his brothers and suggested they joined him in hunting for kangaroo. When Keith found an opportunity, Yagan and his brothers were shot and killed. Yagan's head was removed and placed in a wedge of a smoking tree in order to preserve it. The head was eventually taken to England and until 1964 was on display at the Royal Institute of Liverpool. It was later buried at the Everton Cemetery. In 1990, a request by the West Australian Noongar community was put to the British government to exhume the head, and permission was finally granted. 164 years after it was sent to England, Yagan's head was brought back to Western Australia for burial and according to Aboriginal custom. However, due to the uncertainty of the whereabouts of the rest of the body, the burial has not yet taken place. We don't know where that body is. As a Noongar man, I don't know where it is, but we only have to assume that it's in this area, and we've got a place up here in the Swan Valley, which Noongar people most appreciate governments over the years for giving us the opportunity to find a place we hope that will settle this whole issue. But don't ask me where the other part of the body is, because it's been a long, long time. But I am delighted actually to be here, because this area has a lot to do with me. When I was a health worker, my first assignment was in this Midland Swan Valley area, and many of the Noongars were camped down here in the Swan Valley working for the people, the grapevines, the people who offered jobs for people when the season was open, mid-January right up to about April or May. We used to set up a health clinic here near the Shire Council, and as a health worker in those days, many Noongar people who were coming in for the first time in the metropolitan area came into this vicinity of this area. They had an affinity to the area, to the lakes, to the waters, hunting their food and tucker, waiting for public housing. They were waiting for the opportunity to be part of a community. And so we worked very hard to get these people into housing. We wanted to improve their education, health and so on. And there were a lot of good people who were involved. The Swan Shire, I congratulate the Swan Shire, for many years have been a very great supporter, helping Aboriginal people and their families in some way to be part of community. And I'm pretty sure we have done a lot, have come a long way in this area. So as a Noongar man, brought up only in the Sultan generation, I appreciate my community, due to the community who are great supporters of Aboriginal affairs, that I see a great future for our people, being part of everything that's available to every person in this country. And we don't deny people entering Australia. We've got no grudges or anything like that. We're a multicultural society. I'm happy with that. I'm relaxed with that. And just by working with governments, local government, community and so on, it gives me great faith for the future that I'm able to hand down to our younger generation. And just before I finish, I stand here very proud as a Noongar man, because if you look at what's happening at Clontarf Aboriginal Education College, we established that school in 1983. That's where I went to Clontarf as a student. I was raised up in those free institutions, but when the Christian Brothers saw a vision in 1983 to open that college up, lock, stock and barrel I called it, they came to the Aboriginal people and says, what do you want us to do with this complex, with this building and land? And we put a proposition to them. And since 1983, right up to this very moment talking to you, Clontarf has been a success. We brought the football academy in, headed by Jared Neesham. We brought our own Aboriginal health workers onto site, built them a magnificent building. The Queen, in 2011, we invited her to Clontarf because she wanted to see the good side of Aboriginal affairs and Aboriginal people. So that gives me great confidence that the community is working together. And most of all, the Christian brothers have to be congratulated. They now handed over Clontarf, given the land back to the Noongar people, the first people of this country. They didn't want money, they didn't want anything. It was part of reconciliation. And that is what it's all about. We've got Christian brothers showing a prime example that something that they used from 1901 is it's time we hand back lock, stock and barrel, your land, not because the buildings are on there, but Clontarf now is Aboriginal owned control, without any titles, without going through Parliament, without going through Aboriginal Lands Trust or anything like that. We didn't want that. We just wanted a peaceful resolution to this thing. And the brothers offered it to us, and we took it. And so I wanted to raise that with you as part of this welcome here. So with that, I'm going to sit back and listen to the candidates because I'm very interested in politics, and I'm not going to tell you who I voted for. But I love politics, I can tell you that, and Michelle will tell you that, you know. And but I just love it because when I was in local government, you can debate issues very productively, and if you know your subject, then it makes your job a little bit easier. You don't have to be a know-all, but if you understand your subject, people will listen. So thanks very much, Mark.